And we're live. What's up, everybody? It's the HogmollyHustle. My name is Caleb Jones, and that handsome man right there is Austin Blevins. So we got a lot to talk about today, so I'm going to get rolling. We have a whole lot of stuff here. First up on the docket, we got the Patriots situation. So originally we were going to talk about the quarterback controversy, who's going to start over who, and as it turns out, that answer was given to us when they cut Cam Newton. There's a couple things I want to hit on here, but what are your first thoughts about Cam Newton being cut?
My first reaction is just shock. I couldn't believe that they cut him. I thought that what Belichick would do is keep Cam on the team, probably start him the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season, and then eventually kind of throw Mac out there a couple weeks into the season whenever he had the chance to get his feet wet and get some experience. But, yeah, I know that me being a Panthers fan, big advocate for Cam Newton, and I think that he'll land on his feet. But, yeah, Mac Jones definitely earned it. He outworked him this preseason, and he looks really good in that offense, honestly.
Yeah, I think to me what happened with that was they saw Cam Newton and they saw Mac Jones and they liked Mac Jones and they didn't want there to be any possibility for any sort of controversy if, let's say, they put Mac Jones out there and things went a little bit south early on. Everybody's calling for Cam Newton to step in. I think Bill Belichick wanted that team to be Mac Jones without any controversy. I mean, have Hoyer after him, but nobody's going to be calling for Hoyer to start.
Never.
No matter what happens. So let's go ahead and pivot. Now that Cam Newton's out of New England, where do you think he's going to end up? There's a few places that I like. Let's see where you want him to
go. I have one team in mind, and that's Houston. When you think about Houston's current quarterback situation, there's so much uncertainty with Deshaun Watson. He's still under investigation for, I guess, sexual misconduct is the terminology we'll use here. So there's a lot of uncertainty as to whether Deshaun will play at all this season. If he's on the field, then he's definitely a franchise quarterback, but he's also a franchise quarterback that wants out of Houston. So worst case scenario for the Texans, you're looking at Tyrod Taylor as your starter, and their backups are nothing to write home about. So, you know, me personally, I think that Cam could push for a starting position in Houston. If nothing else, he would be the clear number 2 option behind Tyrod Taylor, somebody that has been injury prone at times in his career. So I think that's the best possible scenario for him. What you got?
I would agree with that. I think that makes the most sense right away. You have the situation in Denver, but I don't think that really makes sense because it seems like the way they're going in Denver is that they want to limit turnovers. They want to have the safe option. And to me, Teddy is a safer option than Cam, even if Cam is more talented. If they were going to go with somebody more talented and having all the athletic tools, they would have stuck with Drew Lock. So that's not going to happen. The Houston Texans, that makes the most sense to me. Barring any injuries to any of the teams out there right now, I think that makes the most sense. Also, I don't know where the Los Angeles Chargers doctor is now, but if he followed Tyrod to Houston, then maybe you might need another backup quarterback here soon because Davis Mills is the only quarterback you can think of besides
Pittsburgh currently,
Deshaun Watson.
Right, and I'll also say that currently Pittsburgh, they have Dobbs and Haskins as their backups.
Haskins?
And neither one of them really impressed me in the preseason. So it will be interesting to see if Pittsburgh potentially brings Cam in for a workout because Big Ben is getting up there in age and he is a very injury-prone quarterback. So it'll be interesting to see. He doesn't have the offensive line that he's had in years past, as I will get into further on in the show. But that could be a potential landing spot too.
Yeah. They also have. Do they still have Mason Rudolph on the?
I think so. I'm pretty sure that he's still on the roster as well.
Okay. Yeah, so those are definite landing spots there. The Houston one makes the most sense to me, given the uncertainty in Houston and the fact that Tyrod and Cam have some similar play styles. Both of it had some injuries here recently. But I would like to see Cam get on somewhere because he is always impressive to watch when he is healthy. So let's go ahead and pivot here. Let's go ahead and move around to the contract issues. Let's stay in the AFC North. You were talking about the Steelers here. Let's talk about TJ Watt and his unhappy situation in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it sounds like TJ's trying to get a contract extension figured out, and the two sides, the Watt camp and the Steelers camp are reaching some impasses. And last I heard, he hasn't taken part in team activity. He's done individual drills, if I'm not mistaken, but that's not what you want to see heading into the season, is have your best defensive player in contract disputes. It's not a good sign of things to come in Pittsburgh if you can't re-sign him. He's one of the best edge rushers in the league. So yeah, it's not ideal for Mike Tomlin and that staff.
And I think a key point here, they let Bud Dupree go this offseason. Now he's with Tennessee. They have Alex Highsmith, and they brought in Melvin Ingram recently to help alongside TJ Watt. But it would blow my mind if they didn't bring back TJ Watt. He is a key piece in that young Steelers defense. And I would imagine they would do all they can to keep TJ Watt and Minkah Fitzpatrick. Those are two players that I just can't see leaving Pittsburgh. I think they'll get it straightened out. But if they don't, boy, is that going to be an interesting piece to hit the free market.
They don't have much of a choice. If they don't do that, then heads will roll in Pittsburgh. He is your franchise guy. You have to lock him up.
Yeah, so that'll be a fun one to watch. I do think they get that deal done because it would just shock me. You don't let somebody like that walk. Somebody that was in the consideration for Defensive Player of the Year alongside guys like Aaron Donald. You just don't let those guys walk.
Right.
So while we're talking about the contract stuff, we got some more things to talk about here. But let's talk about, again, in the AFC North, Mark Andrews and his bukus of millions of dollars that he got. Huge tight end money from the Ravens.
Is that the highest paid tight end contract in the NFL?
I would have to look that up, but that's has to be up there.
I'm going to give it a Google and see if we can find it.
Kelsey, Kelsey and Kittle are the ones that I think would be close, but I don't know if Kittle has gotten his big money.
Maybe Austin Hooper in Cleveland. I know he got a pretty decent bag as well.
Darren Waller.
Highest paid average salary per year. Kittle's number one at $15 million. Travis Kelce's number two at 14.3. The Patriots have two tight ends, both making 12.5, and Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry, and Austin Hooper's making 10.5. So the numbers on Andrew's deal, was it 4-year?
56, right?
4-year 56. So I was not a math major.
That's about 14
million
per,
a
right?
year. Okay. So yeah, he's the third highest paid tight end in the league now.
Okay, that's good. I mean, that's good for the position. We've seen that tight end summit get put together recently, so I think you're going to continue to see guys start getting paid more and more. I think that position is very valuable, especially in the way the NFL is right now. I think that in some cases, tight end's more valuable than a receiver. I think that we're seeing receiver get a little bit more replaceable as time goes on. Still, if you have a super stud, that's a different story, just like with running back. But I could see tight end really stepping into a more important role due to their versatility.
Yeah, I would say, next guy up, especially given spread offenses, the way that the NFL is, spread to pass, and then if you are running, it's typically out of the shotgun. So if you have a tight end like Kelsey or Kittle who can run block as well as, catch balls on post routes or little dumps and underneath routes, it just makes all the sense in the world to lock that guy up. Atlanta has a lot of confidence in Kyle Pitts, so the tight end position has a lot of stars right now, and it's good to see Andrews get paid for sure.
And the next one that I think is due for a big year and then eventually a big paycheck, T.J. Hawkinson of the Lions. I think that with Jared Goff there and whoever ends up being the quarterback going forward, a big, strong, fast, athletic tight end is a surefire target for someone like that.
Yeah, he has all the skill set for sure.
So let's see. We can go through different directions here, but I'm going to go ahead and stick with contracts while we're on that discussion here and talk about the Seahawks making a big signing here, extension rather, with Dwayne Brown. Tell everybody about that.
Locking up the left side. In the offseason, there was some speculation that Russell Wilson was growing, upset with the Seahawks front office, and I think that this was the key issue. There were rumors that he was upset that Brown wasn't signed long term. It's obviously crucial for that Seattle offensive line. It's an offensive line that at times, due to injury, has been very fragile. And Russell Wilson, although he's mobile and he's still pretty young, it's got to be good to know that one of your big guys is locked up long term. It is interesting because Brown is 36 years old, so it'll be interesting to see how that contract plays out. I haven't seen the terms come across Twitter yet, but I'm guessing it would probably be a 2 or 3 year deal. We've seen Jason Peters play pretty well at an old age. Some other guys play well in their late 30s, so hopefully, he can provide some protection for Russell Wilson and give that Seahawks offensive line an anchor that they can build around.
Yeah. And as you know, here on the Hogmolly Hustle, we love to see big guys get paid.
Absolutely.
Especially guys that have put in their dues like Dwayne Brown. And now he's getting an extension, solidifying that offensive line. I think I love it. I love it. It's beautiful. All right. Let's go ahead and move around to – let's go back to the Ravens. Let's talk about their running back situation because you were telling me about this earlier. I didn't realize it was as dire as it is.
It's all hands on deck. They obviously you have the injury to J.K. Dobbins. He was kind of their lead back coming out of camp. Season-ending knee injury. They had another back go down with a torn Achilles, Hill, and so now they're stuck with Gus Edwards and one other back on the roster, and Edwards is the only one with real experience, at least in big moments. So you're starting to see them bring in guys like Le'Veon Bell, Devontae Freeman, and Todd Gurley for workouts. They're all three still free agents, so they're trying to find somebody to pair with Gus Edwards. It's interesting because Baltimore is one of the most run-heavy offenses in the league, whether that be with Lamar or with a running back. And so the fact that they don't have Dobbins, it really puts a thorn in the heel of Harbaugh's offense. And surely they're going to assign at least one of Le'Veon, Gurley,
Latavius Murray just got cut by the Saints. That's another one that could be brought
right
in, coming off his best year.
Yep. So I think they'll definitely get one of those backs. It's just a matter of when.
And I know that you, in our Dynasty Fantasy League, you took a shot on Todd Gurley, who's currently a free agent. You said, well, somebody's got to pick him up at this point.
Yeah, so we've got deep rosters, so I figured he would be a good stowaway.
So I think for fantasy purposes, Gus Edwards is looking pretty good. Let's see.
I drafted Gus too.
So that wraps up all that.
So I've got
you did get a shot, so you're pretty set. Unless they go down again.
Yeah, hopefully.
So we got a few more minutes here till we got to move on. We got a few more minutes here before we got to move on. So let's talk about some of our key takeaways. Now, you and I are both from North Carolina, and we like our North Carolina teams. We had a good weekend for some and not so good for others. Hold on, I got to fix my camera. All right, sorry. All right, I'm back. Sorry, had to fix that. So let's talk about Appalachian State played ECU, which is pretty cool. You got to love the alma mater getting a win there. Get to see a quarterback with a stronger arm than we're used to seeing at Appalachian State, which is nice. That run game's solid. They still got some things I'm a little bit worried about, so we'll see how that goes going forward. But I'll let you talk about your favorite team, UNC.
It was not a weekend to write home about for the Tar Heels. I don't know what the game plan was offensively, but it was not good. It was poorly executed. It was as if we took the same 4 plays, the same 4 vanilla plays, and ran them over and over again until VT knew exactly what was coming. So frustrating weekend for Austin. I will say, in talking about the App State ECU game, that game was played in Charlotte, as was Clemson, Georgia. We'll get into that in a little bit. But did you see the kids eating mayonnaise?
No, I did not see the kids eating.
It was the Duke's mayo. I guess it was like the Duke's mayo, kickoff or whatever. It was a sponsorship that was put forth with Duke's mayonnaise. And they had a mayonnaise eating competition. It was all over social media. They did it at the App game. They did it at the Georgia game. And I don't know if it was for tuition or scholarship or whatever, but it would be hard to get me, to convince me to take a jar of mayonnaise and try to compete with another person to see who could eat. I mean, it's just – anyways.
There are a lot of things that I could eat to get a full ride scholarship, but a jar of mayonnaise is not one of them.
It's at the bottom of my list.
You give me a Vlasic pickles challenge, drinking a jar of pickle juice, I can do that. I'll down that. I'll get that full ride scholarship. But you give me a jar of mayonnaise, I'm just going to say nah. And I like mayonnaise. I used to eat mayonnaise sandwiches when I was a poor little kid in the mountains.
Another conversation for another day.
Yeah, another conversation for another day. But you brought up the Georgia-Clemson game, and I really want to bring that up because I have some takeaways here. And we don't officially have a hype train segment, but if we did, and we might in the future, who knows, I would say my hype train to hop on is Georgia and their front seven, they have the best front seven in college football, and I'm going to stand by that. I'm going to die on that hill. They made a Clemson team look pretty mediocre. Now, given DJ, yeah. So I didn't want to embarrass myself and insult him, but you went ahead and did it for me. So thank you, Uyunglele, I think.
That's how you say it.
Anyway, he still young, still sophomore quarterback, big dude. I was really surprised he didn't run as much as he did. He just didn't really run all that much, and when he did, it didn't look very explosive.
Yeah, I would say with him, a lot of times he has a tendency to just keep his feet planted and hold on to the ball a little too long. I also noticed that he was staring down the specific receiver that he was wanting to throw to. And so, I mean, stuff like that against a good Georgia defense, that'll get you beat.
Now, there are some similarities when you talk about that staring down and just talk about some of the departures from Clemson. There's some similarities to UNC. I don't think Sam Howell played a bad game. I think there were some questionable decisions like the spin around throw to the end zone or that spin around throw to the other side of the field was one interesting decision. But that interception he threw early on, the first interception, that was just a really good play. That was a really well-thrown ball that defender just made a fantastic play. I don't think Sam Howell played poor.
I think that realistically, Virginia Tech is probably a borderline top 25 team. Obviously, they don't have the preseason hype that Carolina does because their quarterback is not as highly touted as Sam Howell is. But, I think that their defense is pretty solid. And, I mean, we'll see how the Coastal shakes out. But it just stinks because Chapel Hill's had such a renaissance in football with Mac Brown coming back. And to lose week 1 in college football, it feels like your season's over if you have national championship aspirations.
And if nothing else, it's a good consolation that Clemson also lost. So that's the person you're probably going to be vying for that ACC championship. And it's good to see that at least they lose. But it would have been really nice to get a game up this early on. All right, so we're about at that minute where we're going to switch around here. Let's go around and look at our quick takes. So how we're going to work with this, we're going to give 2 minutes for each of us to give a quick take, and then the other person's going to have a maximum of 1 minute rebuttal so we can keep this thing moving. And I'll go ahead and start here. So I looked at a few teams here. We each looked at a few teams, and the 3 teams that I chose to focus on, the first is going to be the Cleveland Browns. They are the epitome of hype this year. They have all this talent. They brought in, it seems like, 5 edge rushers to help. They have Larry Ogunjobi on the defensive line. They have a stacked secondary. They have a very deep secondary if healthy. Baker Mayfield really needs to step up. He can play like he did in the AFC Championship. They're going to have a deep run into the playoffs, and I think they have a chance to go to the AFC Championship again. But that means there's going to need to be a lot more confidence, need to be a lot more from Baker Mayfield. Odell Beckham Jr. coming back and really becoming part of the offense would be huge. I think the Browns still have a lot to prove. Everybody's just handing it over to them, but they really haven't done what's required to live up to the hype so far. So I'm interested to see what happens. I have them winning the division, especially with all the turmoil that's going on in the division. I have them winning the division and making it at least a divisional. I don't have them in my playoffs making it to the AFC Championship, but I do have them making a run, and if things turn out a little bit differently, we'll see what happens.
Okay, I think you have a little bit more stock in them than I do. I think that they're a solid team. I think that on paper they're one of the most talented in the NFL. It seems like they're just stacked in every position. Their offensive line is one of the best in the NFL. You got Joel Bitonio and those boys that are just going to give Baker all the time in the world that he needs to throw the ball.
Wyatt Teller.
Wyatt Teller, absolutely. So, you're giving Baker lots of time to throw the ball. You have weapons for Baker to use, everything from Odell Beckham Jr. to Jarvis Landry to David Njoku. In the backfield, you've got Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. That is one of the best back duos in the league. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you have Denzel Ward, you have Jadeveon Clowney, Owusu Kormoa is in Cleveland, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So a lot of versatility defensively. It's just, man, they're talented. My biggest thing is I feel like they were very talented last year, and I was waiting for them to take the next step up. So I think that until they prove it to us, like you said, that's kind of the story with them, is that they're very talented. They just haven't gotten their hands dirty and really rolled up their sleeves and taken the division yet. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Definitely a lot to prove. So let's go ahead and switch it over to your first quick take.
All right. So me being a Carolina Panthers fan, my first take is in the NFC South. And really this is some bitterness on my part, but really I feel like this is biased, but it's still true. The defending NFC South champion New Orleans Saints, Caleb, they went 12-4 and won the division last season over the Bucks. They actually swept the Bucks in the regular season, if I recall correctly.
Yep.
So I've got the Saints finishing third in the NFC South, behind the Buccaneers and behind the Panthers. I think they're losing their heart and soul in Drew Brees. They're losing the figurehead of the Saints organization. This is like the Bulls losing Michael Jordan. And it's impossible for me to think that Jameis Winston can lead them to another 12-win season, even in a 17-game schedule, because of the departure of Drew Brees. You look at, them losing Emmanuel Sanders and Jared Cook on the offense. On the defensive line, the big guys, they're losing Sheldon Rankins and Malcolm Brown. And so it's a few pieces on that defense that it's difficult to replace, and I don't think they've replaced them in the offseason. So, when you think about what Drew Brees means to that locker room, I think Jameis can be a decent quarterback for New Orleans. I think that he'll be, similar to what Teddy Bridgewater was for Carolina last year, but I don't think he's the long-term answer. And so at the end of the day, I think their roster is talented. They have talent in certain areas, but that they lack, a real signal caller that can make that offense go, can get that those troops rallied in key situations. And I mean, call it bias if you want, but I think that the Panthers have a tremendously improved roster, and that their offense is covered with explosive weapons. And I think that they're going to end up with a better record than the Saints.
Oh, ye of little faith. Yes, the Saints lost a lot of pieces here, and they lost somebody like Trey Hendrickson, who you didn't even mention. They lost him as well. They still got Marcus Davenport and Jameis Winston. I don't know if you've heard this, but he had eye surgery, so he has like a robot eye now, basically. So all the issues that he had, he couldn't even see 40 yards down the field, and he's still throwing for 35 touchdowns and 35 interceptions. But he's still got an arm. He can move.
Does have an arm.
And even with, this is something that they didn't have with Drew Brees. Now they can throw downfield consistently, accurately. Well, we'll see about that. But they can throw down consistently.
But who's their deep threat with Michael Thomas out? Marquez Callaway?
Marquez Callaway. Is Traquan Smith, is he healthy?
Not sure. I don't.
See, I think there's going to be a lot of tight end game from the New Orleans Saints. I do think that on one of my predictions a little bit later, I think Alvin Kamara could be set to have a fantastic year. I don't think that Jameis has ever had a running back like that with him. And, of course, Michael Thomas, we don't really know what's going to happen there, but it's probably not going to be good as things go on. But I do think the Saints can be pretty effective. I think a 4-win season is in their cards. They could be pretty effective going forward. So we'll see what happens. All right, let's go ahead.
4-win season?
Maybe, yeah. All right, let's move on. Well, how many wins do you think they win?
I've got the Panthers so I have the Bucs winning the division at 12-5. I've got the Panthers coming in second at 10-7. And then I have the Saints in third at 9-8. I think they're about a 500 team.
Okay. So I'm going to move on with my next – I don't think the Saints – the Saints could win 7-8 games depending on how things go. Now, if Jameis Winston is a robot like his eyes say that he is, then he could be a beast and lead that division. Who knows? I don't expect it to happen, but let's see what happens. So my next team to talk about is the Jacksonville Jaguars. The first overall pick, Trevor Lawrence. Is he the savior for the Jaguars? Who knows? What I do know is that the Jaguars last year had about 7 games within one score. 3 or 4 of those games were within 3 points. And it's not out of the realm of imagination to say that with Trevor Lawrence, without dysfunction at the quarterback room, which is not all Gardner Minshew's fault, with some of the pieces they brought in, now, how much will this be attributed to Urban Meyer? I have no idea, but I do think they can come around and win about 6 or 7 games. Now, when I was looking at this, I feel pretty confident they could be a 6 or 7 win team, but their schedule is pretty difficult. So 6 or 7 wins may not end up happening, and 4 or 5 wins is okay. That's good for this team. It's not a great team, but I do think they're a 6 or 7 win team. I just don't think with the schedule they have that they can pull that off. So that's another team I'm looking at. But that team does have a decent future. I think that going forward, you have Derrick Henry. Once he's out of Tennessee, they're out of the picture. You had the Houston Texans, which who knows what's going to happen with the Houston Texans. I don't think you have much more in that division. The Colts, you have Carson Wentz, maybe. You have a lot of talent on that roster, but they've been looking for a quarterback, and until they get a quarterback to fill that role, until they figure out all the key cogs in that team, I don't see the Colts stepping up. So it's a great opportunity for the Jaguars to step up in the next few years and be playoff competitors, which I do think they can. That's part of my big take here is I do think that within 3 years, the Jaguars are in playoffs. So that is my second take.
I think it's
you
possible.
Got 1 minute.
I think it's possible. You look at the difference between the Houston Texans of 2018 versus the Houston Texans of 2021. DeAndre Hopkins is gone. That defense completely flipped the script to being one of the most feared in the league to abysmal at best. And their offensive line has never been addressed, and now Deshaun Watson wants out of town. So the Colts have one of the better offensive lines in the game. They've got solid playmakers on the defensive line and at linebacker with Darius Leonard. So I think their defense is probably a little underrated. But again, at quarterback, you have a question mark in Carson Wentz. Can he stay healthy? If he is healthy, can he be effective? Or is he just a mediocre NFL quarterback? I think that the Jaguars definitely have the opportunity to build around Trevor and Etienne and some of the pieces that they have. I think that their receiver core is actually pretty solid to be a 1-win, 2-win team last season. So I think that roster is much better than what their record's shown for sure.
All right. So let's go ahead. We'll move on to your next take.
Yeah, so my next one, I've got the defending AFC North champion Pittsburgh Steelers not making the playoffs in 2021. They will not make the playoffs. Last season they went 12-4. Okay, everyone remembers them starting the season 11-0, and then they eventually lost 5 of their last 6, including a wild card game versus the Browns. So they surrendered 48 points in that game.
And Steelers fans have not heard about that Browns game all season long. They haven't heard about it in a while.
All off season. So, I mean, you lose Vance McDonald and Marquise Pouncey to retirement. Pouncey's been an anchor on that offensive line for years, since what seems like the last 8 to 10 years. So they're losing Bud Dupree. They're losing James Conner. They're losing Villanueva. And so they didn't do anything in free agency that really impressed me. It's great to add Najee Harris, but it doesn't really matter if your offensive line is, not even top half of the league. So, I mean, this being the podcast for big guys, we got to recognize whenever the offensive line is just a question mark, and I think that's Pittsburgh. I don't know if Big Ben's going to get the time that he needs to throw to his weapons. Juju and Johnson and some of those guys, Claypool. And I mean, they've got the number 1 ranked toughest schedule by win percentage at 574. So they're playing a ton of teams that were playoff caliber last season that are still very talented. They're in a division with the Browns and the Ravens and the Bengals that have a young Joe Burrow back from injury. Who knows what goes on in Cincinnati, but Big Ben, it seems like he's 57 years old with the mobility of a one-legged tortoise. So, I think he might be in for a rough year in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, we'll see. Now for my next take, I'll go ahead and take over here. It doesn't take long for me to say this, and I'll talk more about it later. My third team I'm going to talk about is the Los Angeles Chargers. Love Justin Herbert. Love the talent of that team. Love Joey Bosa. Love that secondary, and I have the Los Angeles Chargers going to the AFC Championship. So I'll talk about that a little bit later. So I don't want to spend too much time talking about it. You can say what you want to say. We'll make up a little bit of time here.
No, I'll just say that I think that the Chargers are kind of in the same boat as the Browns. The only difference is that the Browns made the playoffs last year. The Chargers going into the season, I thought they had one of the most talented rosters that no one was talking about. And I think that it's kind of like Cleveland where you have these high expectations because you have players like Derwin James. At the time they had Melvin Ingram. Their offense has talent, Mike Williams and Eckler and all these different guys. I feel like they just underperformed last season. So it'll be interesting to see if they can bounce back, especially in a tough division, with Kansas City being what they are. And then Denver and Vegas, neither one being a slouch. So, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and I say they had a lot of close games, like the Jaguars had a lot of close games. One, I'm sure you remember, against Carolina, where they had a pitch on a lateral away from winning that game. So that was a tough one. All right.
I was cheering for the Chargers because I wanted Trevor Lawrence. So,
well, Didn't work out, huh? But you got Sam Darnold.
We got Sam Darnold. It's all right. Consolation prize.
All right, let's go ahead and get your third one here. Get moving.
All right, so my third team is a team that I believe is going to set the world on fire this year. We're talking about the defending AFC East champion Buffalo Bills. All right, shout out to Bills Mafia and my extended step family in Buffalo. I love the Bills. I love Sean McDermott and everything that he's about. Hear more from him later. I think the Bills are going to win 14 games this season. Right? It's a 17-game season. Why can't they go 14-3? Their division is not the strongest. They're going to get some pushback from the Patriots and Mac Jones. They're going to get a decent game from Miami. But all three of those teams in their division have young quarterbacks that are kind of unestablished. And Josh Allen is now, the top dog in that division at the quarterback position. So I've got them with the best record in the AFC, clinching home field advantage in the playoffs over Kansas City. They went 13-3 last season. They've got the 23rd toughest schedule this season by win percentage. I think that bodes well for them. And I think that the Chiefs are loaded, but with talent. But their non-conference opponents include games versus Cleveland, at Baltimore, home against Buffalo, at Washington, the football team, at Tennessee, and then home games against Green Bay, Dallas, and Pittsburgh. So I think it's a tough road for Kansas City to get that one seed. And so I got the Bills winning 14 games and taking that one seed in the AFC.
Yeah. And I think we're probably going to find ourselves in agreement on the Bills being a successful team this year. Now, how things end up, we'll see if we agree on that when we get to our predictions, which is the next segment we're going to go into. But I would agree. I think the Bills have a lot going for them. But I'll leave the rest of this discussion once we get into the season predictions. But before we go, I got 10 seconds here to talk about our podcast here. If you like what you're listening to so far, if you're 36 minutes in, you say, hey, these guys aren't too stupid. I kind of like what I'm listening to. I'm going to like and subscribe and go to all the social media links, which Austin handles most of them because I'm terrible with social media. But the links will be in the description if you are interested. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, maybe? I don't think we have Facebook yet. But we'll get all that set up for you in an easy-to-get-to description. All right. Now, let's look at our predictions. We're going to look at the playoffs, the Super Bowl, and as well with some awards as well, and throw in a little bit of college football as well. So let's get it started here. We're just going to run through these. You tell me who all your awards are, and then I'll tell you who mine are.
Okay. So first up, Coach of the Year, I've got Sean McDermott. I just talked up the Bills. I think that if you win 14 games in the AFC, I think that you're a shoo-in for Coach of the Year.
Okay. You want me to say mine, or you just going to go through all yours?
I mean, we can do it. I vote we do it category by category.
All right. So now my Coach of the Year, we're just trading who we're high on right now, and I'm going to go ahead and say Brandon Staley for the Chargers. If you take a young quarterback, 1-year pro, you come in your first year as a head coach, and you take this really talented team that has underperformed in recent years and take them to, like I said, the AFC Championship. Like what you said about Sean McDermott, I love Sean McDermott as a coach. I think he's a great, great coach, and what he's done in Buffalo is fantastic. But if Brandon Staley is able to do that coming into that Los Angeles team, that's going to get him the Coach of the Year, in my opinion.
Well, that's a narrative for sure.
Okay. What's next? What's next in the docket?
All right, Comeback Player of the Year. I have Saquon Barkley rushing for, we'll say about 1,500 yards on his way to winning Comeback Player of the Year. The Giants are going to be awful, but Saquon's going to be amazing. That's my take.
Okay. I could see that. It was between Saquon and another NFC East player here. That's who I'm going to go with. I'm going to choose Dak Prescott. I think the Giants could surprise some people and win some games they really shouldn't win. But overall, I think they're going to underperform and not really be in the race when it's all said and done. But the Cowboys, as much as I don't like the Cowboys, and you and I both know some people that make it really tough to like the Cowboys, right? So it's tough for me to say this, but I think Dak Prescott is going to win the Comeback Player of the Year. It was unfortunate to see him get hurt last year, but now he should be coming back into a loaded offense. Don't know what to expect from Ezekiel Elliott. Of course, Zach Martin's out for the first game, and that offensive line has been kind of a question going forward. And like we said, when that's an issue, that speaks to some bigger issues you're going to have as a team. But that team is loaded on offense, and they should have a pretty solid season. I think he's probably going to be on his way to throwing for 5,000 yards, and we'll see how many touchdowns in the way. Now, remember, an extra game, so he was throwing for about 4,000 and some pretty much every season before that, so 5,000 is not too crazy, I don't think.
He has all the weapons to do it, too.
Yep, he's loaded there, and I think that would be huge. And if that team underperforms like they have in recent years, then maybe that doesn't happen. But I think that if he plays, 13, 14 games, I don't see there's a way he doesn't get it. Saquon, again, if he plays really, really well, then he's going to vie for that. But those are the two guys I would agree with. What's next?
Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Okay.
I thought about going chalk here and just taking the easy pick. I'm going to roll the dice a little bit, go a different direction. I'm going to go with someone that, from last report that I heard, is not expected to start week 1, and that's Justin Fields. After seeing what he's done in the preseason, I think that as long as he takes over the starting role sometime in the first 3 or 4 weeks, I think that he can definitely win Rookie of the Year. I think that if he has Chicago in a wild card situation, which I foresee happening if he takes over in the first couple of weeks, then I think that Offensive Rookie of the Year could easily go to Justin Fields there.
Okay. I like that. I like the quarterback direction here, but I go a little bit on the other side of the country. Same division, or same conference, but different team. Trey Lance for the San Francisco 49ers. I think very similar situation. He should at some point step into the main role in that offense. Maybe Jimmy Garoppolo plays his best ball and ends up keeping that job. I don't see that happening. Trey Lance just adds so much to that team, just like Justin Fields would in Chicago. I think that if Trey Lance is able to get on the field, and in my predictions, I had them, I think if Trey Lance was going in, I think my playoff prediction had them either just missing the playoffs or getting that 7th seed as the last one in with that very competitive NFC West. Because they have a pretty good schedule if they could potentially do that if Trey Lance is able to step in and be an impact player. And early on, when you have Garoppolo and Trey Lance, 2 quarterbacks, the adage is if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. I don't think that's the case here. I think that it's tough to plan for 2 of those guys when their skill sets are completely different. So we'll see what happens, but we're on the same kind of mindset there, but different quarterbacks, of course.
It'll be funny when Trevor Lawrence wins it, and we'll just look like a bunch of fools. So,
yeah, well,
looking forward to that.
I did have a slash. I had Trey Lance / Trevor Lawrence, so I'm kind of not wrong. I just didn't want to say him.
Make sure to cover all your bases.
Yeah, so I did say I'm going to just edit it on the clip when it says Trevor Lawrence when he wins. All right. What's next?
Defensive Rookie of the Year. All right, I've got Jamin Davis winning Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think you're talking about a guy that's going to rack up statistics on the defensive side of the ball. Thought about going a couple of different ways here. As a Panthers fan, I love J.C. Horn. I just don't think that he's going to get the statistics that that the voters like to see. And so I'm going with Jamin Davis here.
Okay. Well, let me go ahead and delete my answer here. Okay, so Jamin Davis out of the conversation. I do like him a lot. I like him in that defense. I mean, look at a very athletic linebacker with good ball skills in a Ron Rivera defense. Can you think of one that made a big impact?
Are we talking about the greatest linebacker of all time? Hashtag hot take. Luke Kuechly.
I mean, Bobby Wagner plays for the Seahawks, but yeah, Luke Kuechly, a great linebacker in that Ron Rivera defense. I think that Jamin Davis may not be Luke Kuechly, and he's probably not Luke Kuechly, but he is very athletic. I do like him. But I'm going to go with somebody that's also very athletic, like supremely athletic, and in a great situation. A Dan Quinn system is going to use him all over the place. So he's going to be able to rack up stats like crazy, and that's Micah Parsons. I think Micah Parsons on that Dallas defense. They should be putting up a lot of points, so maybe the defense is out there a lot, just going back and forth out there. 3-4-4-3. They're going to kind of use them all over the place. They practice him at outside linebacker, pass rushing, stand-up linebacker. He's fast as all get out. He's going to be all over the place. And I like Micah Parsons for the Defensive Rookie of the Year, if all things go well.
That makes a lot of sense. All right, Offensive Player of the Year. Oh, real quick, who's winning the overall Rookie of the Year? I have Justin Fields.
I would probably, in this same situation, go with Trey Lance.
Okay.
Overall.
So Offensive Player of the Year and my MVP pick, for me, this is easy. This is chalk. It's Patrick Mahomes, right? It's the best quarterback that the NFL has seen in quite some time. A quarterback that can do crazy things, and one of the best arms in the league. He has some of the best weapons in the league. We think that they fixed that offensive line. So yeah, I've got Patrick Mahomes, Offensive Player of the Year.
Okay. Well, I didn't want to be weak and choose who I was choosing for MVP as well, so I chose a different person for Offensive Player of the Year just to make it interesting. But if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But I chose someone a little bit outside the gate here. I said Derrick Henry will be an easy option because he's going to get all the carries in the world, and he won it last year. So back-to-back is not out of the realm of possibility. But if it's not Derrick Henry, I think Alvin Kamara is set to be a statistical powerhouse. I mean, he's going to get all the catches. He's going to get all the carries. He's going to be like Christian McCaffrey in that 100 reception season, that really big season he had a couple years ago. I mean, he's in the same boat right now. And he's got a quarterback that's going to be uncomfortable early on, and he's going to have to lean on Alvin Kamara. So I think Alvin Kamara could really be an Offensive Player of the Year. Also, watch your mouth about the greatest quarterback that we've seen in recent years. You just watch your mouth about that.
Aaron Rodgers is good too, Caleb, but Patrick Mahomes does things that makes me question gravity, the laws of physics. So
the reigning MVP,
alert,
Aaron Rodgers.
Alert. Breaking news, Ravens signing Le'Veon Bell.
Woo, look, there we go. Like we said.
3-time Pro Bowl running back after losing other running backs due to injuries. So there you go.
I would go pick him up in our fantasy league, but we don't have our roster set in the app right now, so I can't really do that.
And
he was on my team last year. And no, look at that. I didn't extend him. All right. So what's next on the where we at? We MVP?
Defensive Player of the Year.
Defensive Player of the Year. All right.
I've got Darius Leonard of the Colts. Ton of tackles, big impact player. Probably the most active linebacker in football right now. Maybe not the best, but the most active statistically. So I'll say Darius Leonard.
Yeah, now I would say Darius Leonard has a pretty good chance, except anyone that gives out awards or all-pro votes hates Darius Leonard for whatever it is.
Yeah.
He does not get the love that he deserves as a really talented linebacker, and I just don't think he's going to win it. Not just because of that, but I just think there's other guys. I think that as long as you have the Los Angeles Rams making a playoff run with Matt Stafford, it's Aaron Donald. It's Aaron Donald until someone leaps over him. And as good as Darius Leonard is, and as much as I love him, it's Aaron frickin' Donald, man.
See, I don't deny that Donald is the best defensive presence. You and I both know that he's an instant double team, sometimes triple team. I mean, he's a guy that you have to make the focal point in stopping if you're an offensive line. But because of that, because of those double teams and triple teams, I don't know if he can rack up the stats necessary to win Defensive Player of the Year. We'll see.
Well, if there's something you could say about Aaron Donald, it's that with his pass rushing, he gets out of position like a lot of pass rushers do, and that opens up lanes. I think you could see that. Now, they have built some guys around him. Leonard Floyd, one of them they brought in on the edge to help with that. Samson Ebukam, another one. But then they added Jalen Ramsey on top there to help out, but they don't really have anything else in the secondary now. But I do think that Aaron Donald, so long as they're making that playoff run and they're getting a lot of opportunities here, I think they should. Aaron Donald's going to rack up the stats because as much as I love offensive linemen, they just can't stop him. I mean, when he wants to tackle the quarterback or he wants to tackle the halfback in the backfield, he's going to tackle the halfback or the quarterback in the backfield. That's just how it is. All right. What's next? MVP?
MVP, Patrick Mahomes.
All right. Yeah, you already said that, so we don't need to move on with that. Now I'll talk about the reigning, defending NFL MVP, Aaron Rodgers. Now, I would be lying if I said I was completely confident he was going to be back this offseason. But now that he is, I'm completely confident in saying he's going to be the MVP 2 years in a row because I have the Packers going a long way in our playoff predictions, and I think that's what we're going to talk about next. But I have...
certainly... You saw The Last Dance with Michael Jordan, right? The documentary about the 90s Bulls, right. The 98 Bulls. So this, I don't know, man. This Packers team has a last dance feel to it, right? They signed Randall Cobb, bring him back. It just feels like they're trying to have one final season together, and then it feels like Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers and company might just split up. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, I'll talk about a little bit about that and some of the situations the Packers have been in before when we talk about our predictions here. So you want to go ahead and move up to the AFC and NFC championship games and move on with that. So I have the Packers making the AFC or the NFC championship, not the AFC. That'd be really impressive. Making the NFC championship, and I have them going against, I don't know if I changed this. I had some conflicting ideas. So I had them going against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I really struggle with that, but I couldn't think of anybody else. Maybe the Rams making a big push there and having a big defensive push. But I couldn't think of anybody else making that. So you get a rematch here against the Bucs and Packers. And it made me think about the Bucs. I think the Bucs could have a really good season. I thought about the Bucs as in the Bucs and Tom Brady in like Star Wars. So the first trilogy was really cool, okay? Very inspiring. You even had a back-to-back in there, I believe. A very impressive first trilogy. Second trilogy, also pretty good, but you had some people that didn't hate it. They say it wasn't as good as the first trilogy. Things were a little bit different. You didn't like that. And then after a while, take a little bit of time off. And then some rebranding, and you get a third trilogy. That first movie and that third trilogy looks great. But we all know as Star Wars fans, that second and third movie sucked.
And then
I have to warn Tampa Bay fans and Tom Brady fans, The Last Jedi is coming. There's no getting away from that. Ring number 8, not going to happen this year. And I have them losing the Packers. The Packers going to the Super Bowl.
Okay. Well, this is easy because I have the same exact prediction here. So we can go on to AFC Championship.
All right. Well, you lead with this one then.
I've got the Bills Mafia stand up. We've got the Bills over the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game.
Is that it?
That's it.
Oh, okay.
That's all I got.
That was underwhelming. I made a Star Wars analogy with mine, and you.
Well, I thought about giving a prediction of the game, but it's like every time I predict the game, it just turns out really badly. So I don't want people tagging me in old takes exposed on Twitter months from now, and you know. So yeah, Bills over Chiefs. I think that Mahomes is going to have them in the game, but because again the Bills won 14 games during the season, have that number 1 seed. I think that the home field advantage at New Era is just going to be too much to overcome. It's going to be cold. It's going to be, we're going to have Bills Mafia jumping off of trucks and smashing through collapsible tables. It's going to be a crazy environment. And I think that the Bills are going to the Super Bowl for the first time
breaking tables
in my
and
lifetime.
Breaking hearts.
Exactly.
The Bills Mafia.
That's the Bills motto.
I like that. I like the Bills going to the AFC Championship, but you're wrong. So the Bills going to the AFC Championship, I agree with that. I struggled a little bit. I thought about the Browns for a little while, but I said, I just don't know. I just don't see them in this setup, the playoff scenario I had. I just don't see that. I had the Buffalo Bills facing Los Angeles Chargers. Now, you have two very similar quarterback builds, huge arms, big dudes that can move, but that Chargers supporting cast overall, as long as everything's healthy and all that, it's better than the Bills supporting cast. And I think that in that situation, you have the home field that's tough to win against, but I think that could be a really exciting AFC Championship game between those two quarterbacks, those two teams. But I have the Chargers going on to the Super Bowl.
Wow. Okay. Justin Herbert, the one who was promised.
I'm going all in, man.
Okay. No, I like it.
Herbert hype train. Let's go.
All right. So I've got Bills, Packers, and you have Chargers. Packers. Okay. All right. So in my Super Bowl 56 scenario, I have the Bills beating the Packers. Sorry, Caleb. 34-27 final. Josh Allen is MVP.
You're dead to me. You're dead to me. So similar Super Bowl, Packers versus Chargers. But I have the Packers winning. The hype train stops here. It's a great run. Coach Staley leading his team to the Super Bowl against Aaron Rodgers. But the last dance has to end in a great way, and I have the Packers winning the Super Bowl.
That's not biased at all.
Nope, not at all. I was a little bit worried you're going to pick the Packers and make me have to choose the Chargers just to be differing opinions here. All right, so we got some minutes here. Let's go ahead and quickly run through our big three. We each brought up some three offensive linemen, defensive linemen that we're going to talk about here that we're going to look out for this year. We're going to kind of run through them lightning round style. I'm going to start off with an Indian lightning round. Pew, 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 pew. That's what lightning sounds like, right? All right, so we have an edge rusher from Indianapolis. Rookie, Kwity Paye. I think this guy is set to be the edge rusher they've been looking for in recent years. I think he's very athletic. He looked really good against another rookie, Penei Sewell, high-round rookie. I think Kwity Paye could be set for a really impressive season. And because we're doing this lightning round, I'm going to go through the next one. You're going to like this. Derek Brown, defensive tackle for Carolina. I think he is a big, mean mofo. Okay, he's a fridge. He's a fridge. He's going to be a key component of that Panthers defense. If he plays really well, that team can be outstanding. And you have Ryan Burns on the edge, breaking through Jeremy Chin, Dante Jackson, J.C. Horn. You have a lot of young talent around, but Derek Brown is the one that needs to be the key piece in that defense. I think he can be because he's a mean monster. And my last one is going to be a college player. Mix it up a little bit.
Okay.
I'm going to say big boy Jordan Davis, number 99, defensive tackle for the Georgia Bulldogs. He is a mean man, similar to a Derek Brown. He's athletic. He can get to the quarterback. He was causing problems for Clemson all game, and he's a senior. And I think he could end up being a big, not just in stature, because he is huge, but a big player for Georgia and a big player in college football this year. So look out for him.
He haunts the nightmares of SEC quarterbacks.
Absolutely.
All right, on the offensive side of the ball, I've got Orlando Brown Jr., tackle of the Kansas City Chiefs. Keep in mind they traded for him from the Ravens in order to hopefully fix their offensive line. The last time we saw the Chiefs was in Super Bowl 55. Wasn't a great showing from that offensive line. Patrick Mahomes was running for his life. So it'll be interesting to see how he transitions from a run-heavy offense to a pass-heavy offense in Kansas City. Second on the list, we have Andrew Thomas. This is a second-year guy out of Georgia. Taken fourth overall above rookies like Tristan Wirfs and Mekhi Becton. He allowed 57 pressures at left tackle last season, 14 more than any other player at the position. So it'll be interesting to see if he can bounce back. If not, the Giants have huge problems. Dave Gettleman might be out of a job pretty soon. And then third, we've got Penei Sewell, the top tackle taken in this year's draft. He was, passed up on by the Bengals. I'm curious to see how he plays in Detroit. Hasn't looked great in the preseason, so it'll be interesting to see if he can live up to the hype. He is young, so it's somebody that you might need to be patient with and give him a year or two to kind of get his feet under him and potentially move to guard.
Yeah, I think that's last bit you talked about Penei Sewell is something that's been talked about with him for a while. A lot of the top tackles, it ends up talking about this. And that game against the Colts in the preseason, I know it's just preseason, but Kwity Paye went past him relatively easily. There's one play in particular that looked really bad. The footing for Penei Sewell, not great for a tackle. Doesn't mean that he can't develop, but I think whether he's a guard or a tackle, they need to decide now what he's going to be, because you don't want to end up like Greg Robinson for the Rams so long ago now, where he goes from tackle to guard at different times and doesn't really ever settle into one thing.
Especially switching him from the left side to the right side. I don't think that people who haven't played offensive line understand how hard it is to train your body to do everything the opposite way. It's imperative to be able to have good footwork at whichever side you're on. And if you've been playing left tackle your entire life and then you get switched to right tackle, it's just crazy. The learning curve that takes place there. So
yeah. And we'll talk about the Orlando Brown thing as well. One of the biggest misconceptions about offensive line is that they say, well, just switch them to the other side. It's the same thing. Or switch them to guard. It's the same technique. It's not. It's completely different. It's like saying, outside linebacker, let's put his hand down. It's going to be the same thing. There's a lot of different aspects to that. It's just not the same thing. And with Orlando Brown, he's primarily in a run offense in Baltimore. Now he's in Kansas City. It's a primarily pass offense, and he's playing left tackle full time now. So we'll see what happens. But those are all some important things to look at. And we're going to wrap this up pretty quickly here. Let's talk about the college football playoffs. Let's squeeze that into this and talk about our top four here. Maybe we get roasted. I like my opinion. I like my takes. So we'll see what happens.
All right, I got a steaming hot take here. Like I'm going to get so much flack for this, but Alabama, who just had a very convincing victory over Miami this weekend, Alabama, Caleb, is not going to make the college football playoff. If you look at their schedule, they have 4 or 5 different games that are just huge matchups. Everything from Auburn, you have to play at Auburn, you have to play at Florida. I believe they have A&M in Tuscaloosa. Believe they play LSU as well. It's a tough schedule, and I think that they're going to lose one of those games and then lose to Georgia in the SEC championship. And a 2-loss Bama team is not getting in my opinion. So Alabama is not going to make the college football playoff. That's my hot take. The teams that I think do, you got 1 seed Georgia taking on 4 seed Oklahoma. You got 2 seed Ohio State taking on 3 seed Clemson. That's what I've got.
Okay. That's a heck of a take, man. Hope you're prepared for what happens next. I think Bryce Young is incredibly talented. That Bama team is incredibly talented. The schedule you bring up is something that is important here. Texas A&M is no team to joke about. They are star-studded. They got a great team. Got a bunch of studs. Georgia's a great team. Like I said, best front 7 in college football. I'm going to stand by that. So I could see Alabama not making it, but I just think it's more likely that college football players are going to say, screw it. We're going to put 3 SEC teams in, because you talk about some of the best teams. If you want to get the best competition in there, that might be what you have to do. Heaven forbid you put Notre Dame back in. Please, no, don't do that again.
But if you look at their schedules, Clemson and Oklahoma have much easier roads. And if they are a 1-loss team and Bama's a 2-loss team, it's hard for me to think that they would put them in over Oklahoma or Clemson in that situation.
Yeah, it was a different year, but Ohio State just made it in playing half the games that other teams did. I think that they showed last year that they just want to get the best teams in. And if they do that, I just don't know how you – we'll see what happens. But who I have coming in is Georgia, Bama, Ohio State. And Ohio State was tough because that first game against Minnesota was not great. That was not a great first game. They ended up winning. But here on out, they should not have any close games going forward. Their quarterback should start being the guy that they wanted him to be. A lot of talk coming out of the Elite 11 when he came in as being this really competitive quarterback. We'll see what happens. And then my last pick, like I said, if you want to get the three best teams in there, you put a third SEC team in there and get Texas A&M in there. Otherwise, you put Clemson in there. And Clemson didn't look great against Georgia, but then again, best front seven in college football. So it makes sense that they could struggle. DJ Uiagalelei, he looked a little bit nervous at first, but started settling in a little bit later, but the game was already kind of settled. Threw a bad pick a little bit later in the game, kind of got goosed and threw a pick six. Clemson lost a lot. Clemson lost a lot. I don't know if I can see them making it in.
Their schedule is incredibly favorable. It
is.
I think their toughest test remaining is NC State, and they're not a top 25 team. So, they'll have to play Florida State. That could be a trap game for them. But aside from that, I don't see Clemson losing again until potentially the ACC title game. And if not then you're looking at a one-loss Clemson team whose only loss is to Georgia. So it's hard to make a case against them at that point.
Yep. So we'll see what happens. All this talk about Clemson, and then 6 wins later, we'll talk about how we both look like fools actually believing they could get that far. But we'll see what happens as the college football season goes on. There are some questions, and we'll talk about it. And we'll keep track of it as the season goes on. But if you stuck with us so far, thank you for watching. That's all we have for this episode here.
Hold on. Did we say our college football playoff championship pick?
Yeah, forget what I said. We have one more thing to go over, and then we'll wrap it up here. Hey, look, it's a new thing. We're grabbing it by the horns here and going on. He threw me off with Bama not making it. I said, well, you can't have a national championship without Bama in there. So.
Scrambled brains. It happens.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to say that Georgia wins the national championship.
There we go.
I'm sticking with it.
I got the Dogs over Ohio State. And speaking of schedules, if you look at Ohio State's schedule, this week they play versus Oregon in Columbus. After that, it's versus Tulsa, versus Akron, at Rutgers, versus Maryland, at Indiana, that could be tough, versus Penn State, okay, at Nebraska, versus Purdue, versus Michigan State, at Michigan. So I think that they have a clear path as well, similarly to Oklahoma and Clemson. Their schedule is not as tough after this week as you would think it would be. So
if Harbaugh has proven anything, it's that he can beat Ohio State. So that one could be interesting to watch. But I think Indiana is honestly the one to be super concerned about. That's a really good, solid defensive team.
They're sneaky
Oregon,
good.
We'll see what happens. But that Indiana team could end up being the surprise team that knocks them off. But other than that, like you say, not a very big. Can I wrap up now? Am I allowed to wrap up?
I think that's everything. Final thoughts?
All right, cool. That's pretty much what I got. Do you have anything you want to add?
I'm just really excited for football season. We've got the first week of college football under the books, and a really good week of NFL football coming up. So excited to see fans back in the stadiums, and hopefully all goes well with COVID and get back to normal.
All right. Yeah, I agree. And this podcast is going to be a little bit longer than what we're going to usually shoot for, but we're trying out some new things here. Now, I can say my spiel. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for sticking with us for as long as you have, if you have stuck with us. If you have not and you're just tuning in, I promise you, go back and listen to some of this, and you will like some of it. You'll hate some of it, but hopefully you like more than you hate. We're going to keep doing this every week. We're going to keep shouting out big men. If you like what you're listening to, even just a little bit, subscribe. follow us. Maybe you like some more of it as time goes on. You'll drop us a like. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on all the socials. Leave us a like. Tell us how we can improve it, because we're not too shallow to not listen to any positive criticism. Just make sure it's, positive criticism. Thank you again for tuning in. That's about an hour and 10 minutes here. So I guess we're going to head on out of here. Thank you for tuning in to the Hogmolly Hustle. My name is Caleb Jones. That guy over there with the big head is Austin Blevins. See you next week.